Summary of Beyond the Brand. Why engaging the right customers is essential to winning in business. By John Winsor. The Storytellers. In 1995, Nike decided to enter the very competitive golf market with its own balls, bags, shoes, and golf clubs. The company found common ground with golfers by cultivating relationships with golf pros and top players to learn what they wanted. As players began to use its products, Nike inked a $100 million deal with Tiger Woods, a famous early adapter from within golf's social network. By 1999, the investment paid off. Players began winning major tournaments using Nike gear. Once the company planted the seeds, the players responded to stories generated inside their own social network. People like to tell and hear good stories. So imagine the impact of having your customers tell their friends compelling stories about your products. Storytelling has several roles in marketing. You can tell customers stories about how people have used your products to improve their lives or meet their goals. And, to put your product in the center of customers' concerns, you must hear their stories as well. Ask your customers to be storytellers. To learn the real reasons they like your products or services, use a planned, research-oriented approach to eliciting their stories. Include these steps. 1. Find the best group for your research. Approach those who really use your product. 2. Solicit the best feedback possible about your product or service through your customers' stories. Do not delegate this step. Listen carefully yourself. 3. For insight, probe for the real meaning of people's stories. 4. Let these insights inspire you to find new approaches to meeting customers' needs. 5. Trust your instincts as you develop ideas. 6. Find the common ground your company shares with its customers and their culture. 7. Develop your own stories that share this information and promote your product. In the right framework, these steps can help marketers implement a bottom-up strategy. This strategy starts by listening to the customer to gain important insights that fuel innovation. Then it creates change inside the company to develop new products and marketing strategies. Working closely with customers sounds like traditional marketing, but there is a hitch. In today's environment, in many cases, customers are savvier, less loyal, and often better informed than the marketing department staff members who pursue them. To connect with customers, marketers must learn how to use new tools to engage them on their own terms, in their own environment. These tools include listening, interacting, and searching for common ground. Storytelling is a traditional way to elicit and disseminate information. Since the most ancient times, people have used stories to teach and entertain. Stories bind people together, inspire them, and help create common values. In a business context, storytelling can enliven an organization and can form a foundation for new unity, as well as new products and strategies. Practicing anthrojournalism. Storytelling is a powerful technique by itself, but to get the best results, tell your story correctly. Your best stories should come from actual customers talking in the most unvarnished way. Such recollections provide better stories than focus group discussions can offer, because the focus group selection process often is flawed and people in focus groups may not be candid. To get the real story, marketers must go to their actual customers. To garner gripping stories, learn the techniques of anthrojournalism, which combines objective reporting, being a journalist, with subjective efforts to understand people's activities in a cultural context, being an anthropologist. The goal is to step into the customer's ecological system, to find their center of gravity, based on their emotional and cultural messages, and to apply it by fitting your product or service to their real desires. Marketers who train to conduct such anthrojournalism interviews learn to hear people's ectones, to detect their values and social framework. This approach is intended to find out why consumers behave as they do, why they use your product, and how they use it. The guidelines for this kind of research include: determine the context of how customers use a product. Some market research people rely on simple observation to derive conclusions. This misses the underlying motivations about why people act or why they use a product. Often, marketers do not want to invest the time to find out more about their subjects. But if you spend time with people, it will pay off in a greater understanding of your customers. Go in person, there is no substitute for face-to-face research. Get into the field to meet people and observe their body language, what they say and how they say it. Get the details, people will tell you many small details and express opinions about your product that may surprise you. Make the effort to extract and record those descriptive details. They could prove important later. Examine the results and derive customers' real messages by listening to their stories. Avoid expert interpretations and overanalysis. Listen to the first drafts of what the customers say and draw your own conclusions. Look at the big picture and seek an overall idea of how people perceive and use your product. As you seek the larger picture, your customers may surprise you. The leaders of a computer manufacturing business were interested in how much their customers would value their latest technological breakthrough, faster processing. Speed was their main selling point. But customers said the opposite. Despite the machine's speed, consumers did not like the new computers because they were ugly. As a result, customers who owned the company's slower machines passed on the new faster, but homely computers. However, they were interested in speed if the machines were more stylized, like Apple's iMacs. This news was a total surprise to the computer makers, who had not considered the machine from an aesthetic perspective. Getting this kind of information in an actual story from customers requires creativity and discipline. Anthro-journalists have to become hypersensitive to how products are used and how they fall short of meeting a person's needs. Notice how people interact. Look for the emotions behind each action and determine which values drive customers' decisions. The marketer should approach this exercise like a reporter entering a new culture. The goal is to find common ground where the customer and the marketer have the most shared meaning. To achieve that kind of linkage, marketing people must go into the field themselves to conduct customer interviews. Avoid outsourcing this step to an agency or market research firm. The field information will lose its power as it gets translated and interpreted. Videotaping the interviews may prove fruitful. Author John Winsor once published a magazine for female runners. The publication was on the verge of bankruptcy when he had focus groups conducted to learn how to turn it around. He was surprised that the results did not mirror the feedback he expected from his readers. He was right. The focus group members had been recruited from a static database of people who were regular focus group participants, and were not avid runners. Once Winsor understood that this group generated bad information, he scrapped the focus groups and began interviewing runners at races, gyms, and sporting events. He garnered new, higher quality information that enabled him to build his magazine's circulation. Marketers who were researching American sports utility vehicle, SUV, owners for a Japanese auto manufacturer came to a similar conclusion. The Japanese firm's leaders were convinced that the popularity of SUVs had peaked, and that US drivers really preferred cars that resembled specialized station wagons. To check their opinions, the manufacturer's marketers asked 15 SUV owners to demonstrate how they used their vehicles. They watched as the SUV owners adjusted specific features, such as car seats and mirrors, and they saw how the owners loaded the vehicles. After a few days, the Japanese team had seen enough personal interactions between the SUV owners and their vehicles to get a stronger idea of what the future would bring. None of those insights would have been possible without personal observation. When Unilever marketers wanted to make its consumer goods accessible to rural poor people, they had to learn what these people most needed and could afford to acquire. To get this information, market researchers lived in a village with these potential customers for 8 weeks. But even intense observation is not useful unless it is accompanied by careful listening. This is an issue in the service sector, where some professionals do not value listening. Recently, medical schools have begun offering listening classes because doctors, generally, are known as notoriously bad listeners. New studies have shown that patients reveal 80% of what is wrong with them when they describe their own symptoms. But doctors miss these clues since they see themselves as medical experts and perceive their patients as less sophisticated. Social networks. People communicate through networks or interpersonal connections. In this context, word-of-mouth recommendations are meaningful because the participants all know each other. Thus, social networks are powerful persuaders with high credibility. Knowledge that comes from social networks is based on a common belief system, a shared meaning, which bonds the people in the network together. Shared meaning is very motivational, it makes groups more cohesive and fuels innovation. These networks can become even more powerful if they involve influential people who are early adapters of new trends or ideas. The Merrill Company tapped into the power of social networks when it wanted public guidance on trends in fashionable shoes. Before it launched this effort, the firm had developed a very popular moccasin that eventually doubled its sales. Eager to continue that success, its leaders sought to work with people who could detect upcoming fashion trends. With research, Merrill built a social network that delivers reliable feedback, enabling it to stay trendy. Listening to consumers' stories is the best way to discern the meaning your company shares with its customers. While companies need such consumer response, once they get it, they must transform the information into new products. No rulebook tells managers how to convert feedback to products. At that point, their intuition is critical. Intuition becomes invaluable when companies face a gap between what is known and what needs to be built. While formal business education often downplays the role of intuition, some psychologists teach that it is a better tool than pure numeric analysis. An increasing number of academics recommend formally acknowledging intuition as another type of legitimate knowledge. Successful stories. Good word of mouth about a product sets the stage for storytelling with positive results. When a recounted event resonates with people, the story can take on a life of its own. To have that impact, tell your story clearly, from one point of view. Target each story to a specific audience, using its vocabulary and source of motivation. The audience members should believe that the story echoes something they could accomplish, something good that could happen to them. Otherwise, instead of being a potential draw toward a reward, the story becomes irrelevant. The goal of storytelling is to transport listeners into a world where they envision themselves achieving the same objective as the story's characters. When the consumer willingly steps into your story, storytelling has fulfilled its marketing goal.